Take two. My camera fell over, so I'm redoing. Apparently my tripod is being a bit of a jerk. Okay, now today I have a quiz regarding seizures. The answers on this quiz are more tuned towards 3 or 4 conditions that tend to affect children. For example, Dravet syndrome or Lennox-Gastaut. However, I think it could be good to pick up on symptoms, especially if you're trying to talk to your doctor and you need more information, or you're attempting to. And I do believe that everyone should be an advocate for themselves, and if they cannot speak for themselves, have a trusted advocate. So I'm going to start, and granted, I probably don't need to know your answers, but it's good to have them for your neurologist. Also, today we're being sponsored by Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. I know that a lot of people mock the idea of coffee being your entire life. However, it is fun to find new coffees or new taste and to have fun with your friends. So I am I'm enjoying my sponsor. I'm drinking Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf today and drinking it out of a mug that I just found for $2 at Big Lots. I love a big mug. So we're going to start. This question, number 1, regards genetics. And, oh, by the way, if you are extremely active, caffeine can cause issues, so drink safely, accordingly. Don't drink too much. Limit your caffeine usage, but just remember that it can also help headaches, depending, and caffeine has been in a lot of my headache medications. Be very, very careful in case you get jumpy or nervous, but it's okay to enjoy, and it's okay to have fun with friends and enjoy yourself. Okay, question 1, and there are 10 questions here. Do you or does a loved one have a family history of seizures? Many people with epilepsy have a family disposition towards seizures. Granted, that doesn't apply to everyone. For example, mine came from an injury where the back of my head hit a sidewalk. Basically, I was dating a guy that didn't like an answer I had given him. Watch yourself, by the way. Some people are big jerks. With disabilities, love and dating can be very, very difficult, and sometimes a relationship between a disabled person and someone else can be abusive. So watch yourself. Okay. And it is definitely have an advocate, and definitely advocate for yourself. And if it feels wrong, don't second guess and get out. Yes, I know it's difficult. It's not just an easy thing. And yes, make sure that you have advocates and that you know who you can trust. But in relationships with disabilities, there can be higher risks of abuse. Do you or a loved one have a family history of seizures? Why this matters: there are only a few epilepsy syndromes that are hereditary. So this may help your doctor uncover a specific diagnosis sooner, and a genetic test might help too. When did the seizure start? Before 1 year of age, 2 to 8 years of age, or 8 years plus, or 9 years plus? For me, it was age 20. While some seizures start in early childhood, seizures and other symptoms can appear later in life, and they can appear late at any time in your life. Due to injury, due to stress, there is a threshold, essentially. A lot of stress and injury, medication issues can put you over the threshold. Also, heat and dehydration. So watch yourself, be safe and sane, and remember to take good care of yourself. And if something feels wrong, it's okay to say something. Question 3 out of 10. What types of seizures have you or your loved one experienced? For me, it was absence seizures and tonic-clonic seizures. And there are many types that can range from being what looks like zoning out or daydreaming to a tonic-clonic, tonic meaning stiff, clonic meaning loose. And this is referred to as the classic seizure, and I've heard people say this is the only type of seizure that exists. But that's not true. You don't always lose consciousness, and there are, remember, 40,000 separate conditions that can cause epilepsy and or seizures, and there are some seizures which are not epilepsy related. So every seizure disorder can present with a different combination of symptoms. Oh, by the way, you cannot swallow your tongue, so don't put anything in there, which can cause choking, tooth breaking, and or bleeding. Trust me, I once bit someone's finger so bad they needed stitches because they didn't realize this. Make sure that you keep track because it's important, and you can get extra help with your doctor by knowing what you're doing. What time of day do seizures most often occur? For me, it was either morning or evening. I also had one in the tub, possibly because hot water tends to raise your heart rate and your blood pressure. So make sure that you watch those as well. And I'm still on my way towards getting past my fear of water. This way you can, writing down the time of day can often give your doctor a greater picture of what's going on. I know that there are some awkward silences, and I'm sorry. I am waiting for the questions to pop up. Okay, what triggers your seizures? And these are some big differences. Heat, flashing lights, illness or fever, bathing, overexertion. For example, having a big jog and just strong emotions, yes. Falling asleep or upon waking, excuse me. Other or no known triggers, meaning that honestly you're just as confused as anyone else. For me, it used to be heat, flashing lights, which remember only affects essentially less than 1% of people with epilepsy, overexertion, and strong emotions. And yeah, watch yourself with strong emotions. I know it's tough, and sometimes we get fighty and then we don't know what to do. Have the seizure types changed over time? I began with tonic-clonic. I remember that it was a very, very big day. It was a lot of overexertion and just extremely tough. So, and then later on, I had a few absence seizures and partials, which... And there was one person in my life who would ask me not to do that here. And that made it tougher because, you can't actually control it. That's kind of and this is, more, it's not something that you can consciously say, oh, I'm going to stop this now so that I can have this in private. If only. Or, not at all. Do you or your loved one have trouble walking? After a seizure, I used to have a lot of trouble walking. And this was frustrating as heck because, I'm a pacer. And so sitting down to relax or recoup was definitely tough. Do you or a loved one have cognitive impairment? And I used to, especially after a seizure, because everything needed to calm down, plus I was exhausted. It depends on a lot of things. So I did have a temporary... What age did you first notice the signs of cognitive impairment? And it was just after I started with having seizures and on a lot of medications that made me sicker. And I am... It was very, very tough, especially with having issues with medications and with, different... Sometimes they'd work against each other. There were contraindications, which sucked. Let me tell you, it just sucked. And I know this is... Half the seizures continued despite multiple anti-epileptic drugs, aka anti-seizure or anti-epilepsy medications. Until we found a medication that worked for me in 2015, and until I did the keto diet for 3 years, there were talks about machinery like the vagus nerve stimulator and a few other things, and about certain medications, surgeries, excuse me. So they haven't continued. However, I'm still getting there with the headaches. By getting there, I mean I am on the road. I'm singing along to my travel playlist. This is what I mean by getting there. And music choices depend on the day. Mostly 80s, sometimes some Motown. So up to 90% of people with a rare form of epilepsy, and I'm not saying I do, may continue to have seizures even with the treatments. And also remember that if you don't feel right and some of your medications are contraindicating, for example, with me, it was hydroxyzine, which is a medication that was used for me to help sleep. And early in the journey, it was Wellbutrin for my blood pressure, because blood pressure and epilepsy tend to... Yeah, they contraindicated each other and made it worse. And do you have, or any of your relatives had the following symptoms: autism, ADHD, personality disorders, skin issues, strange eye movements, kidney problems, sleep disturbances, developmental delays, behavioral issues, or severe aggression, cognitive impairment, other, or none? Why this is important is your doctor should know about these symptoms to be able to give you a complete picture. It's also important to know because some treatments may make these other symptoms worse. Keep in mind, if something feels wrong, talk about it. And yes, I know this is difficult. I have had some doozies of neurologists in my time who sometimes didn't believe me or were very, very negative, in which case If something feels wrong, or you're not being heard, you're not being listened to, and or they are abusive, because even doctors can be abusive, it is okay to leave them, to ask friends for a good replacement, to fight for yourself. Please do not go this alone, and whatever you do not just accept it because they are a doctor. This is not how you're going to help your health. So that's it. And remember, it's okay to keep, and please ask questions. Please don't go things alone. And whatever you do, if something feels wrong, you don't feel like you're being heard, talk about it. You are loved. I'm going to post a link to this quiz in the description, so look down. And remember to give yourself all the love you can get. And remember to take really good care of yourselves. Try to remember not to eat a lot of junk food. Get in some exercise if you're feeling healthy enough to move. And yes, it's okay. And yes, sleep disturbances can happen. And even though lack of sleep can lead to more seizures, this is the nature of this condition. And it's a pain in the tuchus. I know. And remember to be there for yourself and to definitely be an advocate for yourself. And no, doctors don't know everything. And yes, it's okay to tell them this is what's going on and I don't appreciate your attitude. If they don't like that, tough noogies. You are loved. Take really good care of yourselves.